In Total War Saga Troy, you'll be conquering new lands, commanding massive armies, and leading your people to prosperity against the backdrop of the epic and legendary tale of the Trojan War. With control over everything from what you build in your cities to your tactics on the battlefield, Total War Saga Troy has a lot of systems that are easy to learn, but challenging to master. Over the course of 3 videos, we're going to cover the basics of how to govern your people, how to command your troops, and how to dominate the battlefield. In this video, we're discussing how to govern your people on the campaign map with 5 key things to keep in mind across all of your playthroughs. Picking your faction. The first step in any Total War game is to pick your faction and sub-faction. In the case of Total War Saga Troy, you'll want to take a few things into consideration. First, there are 2 culture groups available in the game at launch: the Danons, also known as the Achaeans or the Greeks, and the Trojans. Each of these factions has 4 legendary heroes that you can choose from, and the legendary hero you choose will determine the sub-faction you lead and the overall starting difficulty you're likely to be challenged by. This starting situation is determined by a variety of factors, from the quality and quantity of starting settlements to the threat level of nearby factions to the sub-faction specific mechanics. Selecting a legendary hero on this screen will show you the details about what makes one stand out from another. This is very important to consider before diving into any game, whether it's your first or your 100th. Each faction will have crucial differentiators. Not only is each legendary hero of a different class, specializing in different types of combat or governance and bringing different modifiers to the campaign as well, but their factions will be unable to recruit certain types of heroes to lead armies, will have access to certain unique units, whose details you can check by hovering over their cards, and perhaps most importantly, will put a spin on core gameplay mechanics that can greatly change how each sub-faction plays far more than anything else on this screen. These spins can either be advantages or challenges. The safe havens of Odysseus aren't available to anybody else, and they'll help him out, but the fact that he can't upgrade landlocked settlements will cause quite a bit of trouble right from the start. Agamemnon has a court to manage and can vassalize others. Sarpedon focuses heavily on resources and trade, while Paris has an entire mechanic surrounding the safety, happiness, and movement of Helen around the campaign map, something that comes with benefits and risks. Take a look at each of the sub-factions, and unless you have a personal loyalty to one or the other, consider which rules and abilities sound most appealing to you, as this will be the biggest difference you feel most often while you play as the sub-faction. Beyond that, a quick read of the recommended playstyle will let you know your strengths and weaknesses on the battlefield, and as you launch your campaign, it's a good thing to keep in mind to make sure you're making the most out of your choice. Once you load in, the game will guide you regarding your current circumstances, and it will assign you some early missions to get you started in the right direction. And while some things might be self-explanatory, there are certainly nuances in Total War, especially in this title, that are worth highlighting.
To challenge your fame and power.
How resources work. Total War Saga Troy is the first Total War game to introduce the concept of a multi-resource economy, introducing food, wood, stone, bronze, and gold as the 5 resources you need to operate. Food is required for recruiting and maintaining soldiers of all levels, though it's also used to gain divine favor of the gods, perform actions using your agents, and build certain structures. Wood is used to construct buildings, stone is used in conjunction with wood and sometimes food to build higher tier buildings, and bronze is used in conjunction with food to recruit and maintain higher tier troops, and in conjunction with the other resources to build higher tier buildings. Finally, gold is reserved for the highest tier of unit recruitment and maintenance and building construction. Each of these resources can also be used to trade. Using the diplomacy screen, you can see what potential trade partners have in great supply or what they're lacking, and you can offer them what you have for what you need. Alternatively, resources can be used to forge alliances, sue for peace, sign non-aggression pacts, and any number of other diplomatic options. So, now we know the use for resources. Let's discuss how to obtain them. Trade, we just discussed, asking other factions to give you resources as one lump sum or over the course of multiple turns, whichever better suits your needs. You can also earn resources by researching certain technologies, winning battles, conquering cities, or completing missions. The most basic way to get resources, however, is simply by developing settlements you own, and by acquiring new settlements to develop as well. Looking at the campaign map, you can quickly see which settlements produce which resources for their respective owners. Depending on the buildings in the settlement in question, that resource will be obtained at a faster or slower rate per turn. Beyond building structures in the settlement itself, you can also build certain buildings in other settlements in the same province. These work together to boost the production rate of certain resources to really push your economy. One major outlier as far as resources is concerned is gold. While gold is found like any other resource at minor settlements, it is a near finite resource. Any settlement that has access to gold will only be able to mine at maximum efficiency until the deposit runs out. Once that happens, the settlement continues to produce gold, but at a significantly reduced rate. This makes gold much more valuable and gives you a good reason to chase after gold mining settlements early on so you're able to get the most out of the deposit. As I said earlier, it's not just about developing the settlements you own at the beginning of the game, but also about acquiring more settlements to develop as well, in the hopes of further strengthening your people. So, let's talk about acquiring more settlements. Choosing what to conquer. Though the game will initially give you objectives to attack certain armies or conquer certain settlements, it pretty quickly leaves it all up to you, and the important decision of what to conquer next can be a little daunting at any point of a campaign. It might be tempting to make a beeline for your objectives, and depending on which faction you're playing as, this can be viable to a degree, though in most cases, there will be some objectives that are just too far away at first, or too powerful and dangerous to begin with. Instead, you'll need to build up your power base, allowing you to raise and field larger, better armies, and giving you access to more resources. So, how do you decide what to conquer next? If you're already at war with a faction, it's a good idea to stay focused and not open up too many fronts. If you're not at war with a faction, here's a good way to pick a faction to declare war on. Find nearby settlements that are either in provinces that you already own part of, will provide resources you want or need, or will provide unique recruitment opportunities that could give you an advantage. Owning an entire province has advantages we'll touch on later, and we've already discussed the value of the various resources and why you might want to seek them out. Double-clicking on one of these desirable settlements will open up the diplomacy screen with a faction that owns that settlement. Once here, you can see what your relations are like with the faction and why, who the potential target is allied with, and how many settlements they have, as well as their overall strength rank compared to yours, an indicator of the strength of their armies compared to yours, both in terms of quantity and quality. Use this information to help you make the final decision. Are you declaring war with someone who could be a potential ally? Do you have what it takes to fight a long war against an enemy with many settlements? Are you able to fight an alliance of enemies? Either way, once a target faction is picked, the next step is to pick where to actually strike. You don't need to declare war formally, you can simply perform an act of war to declare it without any penalties. You can engage enemy armies early on to minimize their mobility as well as their offensive and defensive options. You can see the size of enemy armies quickly, and if you have an army or agent of your own close enough, you can even see some or all of the army's composition. Use this to determine if you can take them on or not, and if so, send your armies in as needed and get the job done. With that said, making tangible progress in a war or completely destroying a faction requires not just eliminating their armies, but also conquering or otherwise taking away their settlements. Any settlement belonging to an enemy faction will be marked, and of those settlements, you should look for those which, as mentioned before, are close to your existing territory or are part of a province you already partially control, are going to provide you with resources or recruitment options you need, or finally, have weak defenses. Selecting an enemy city and clicking on the Garrison Information tab will show you what units the city will defend itself with if you have an army or agent close by. And if an enemy army is stationed at the city, you'll need to select it separately to see what it will bring to the field as well. Minor settlements are unwalled, but major settlements always have walls, an obstacle you'll have to overcome, possibly at quite a cost of time and troops. If there's a target that fulfills all three of these factors, that's the ideal target. If not, consider the pros and cons of each. Capturing a city that produces a resource you need is near instant gratification. Targeting the weakest settlements will allow you to expand without taking heavy losses in your armies, which can help you maintain momentum in the long run, and keeping your territory consolidated means it's easier to defend, and you can benefit from owning entire provinces sooner. On which note, how to manage provinces. As you conquer territory, you'll need to manage the settlements and the provinces they're a part of. Anytime you select a settlement, you're presented with details about both. Here, you can see which settlements make up the province, both major and minor, what buildings have been built in the settlements you own, and what the garrisons of said settlements look like. On top of that, you can also see the buildings and garrisons of settlements you don't own, provided you have an army or agent near it. You can also see what resources you're getting from your settlements in the province, the overall happiness of the province, and your cultural influence over the province, as well as various status effects that might be active for one reason or another, such as in-game events. This screen also lets you enact commandments if you control all the settlements in the province, and it lets you order your settlements to pursue various construction projects as well. Managing your provinces is somewhat simple on the surface, but it can become quite an involved process if you're trying to optimize your approach, and here are a few things to consider. You'll want to ensure the people are happy, because if this number hits -100, you'll have a rebellion on your hands. Hovering over this number will tell you what is causing the current happiness situation and will give you an idea of what negatives you might need to be worried about and what positives you're currently taking advantage of. You'll also want to maintain high influence, especially since some buildings work better when influence is high. You'll want to make sure growth is happening at a steady rate, because this is what determines how quickly you can upgrade your settlements and subsequently your other buildings within those settlements, and ultimately your armies. Prioritizing growth is not a bad idea. Minor settlements can only be upgraded to Tier 3, which means building in these minor settlements can't be upgraded past Tier 3 either. Major settlements, meanwhile, aren't limited in that way. So, always try to build the buildings that can be upgraded past Tier 3 in your major settlements and build the limited buildings in minor settlements. Try to assign your provinces roles. Some can be built as economic hubs, allowing you to largely ignore the need for buildings that provide recruitment options. These provinces can instead be dedicated to gathering resources, worshipping the gods, or providing support in other ways. Other provinces should focus on recruitment capabilities, building not just structures that allow for recruitment, but those that improve recruitment quality or availability in one way or another. Most provinces, however, will have a mixed responsibility. Try and look for synergies. Some buildings work off each other to maximize resource production. Some buildings, like the ones that produce a minor settlement's primary resource, work better when your influence in the region is high. Some buildings hurt the people's happiness or the province growth rate, but can be countered by other buildings that boost either of the two. Find ways to either cancel out the negatives or take a larger advantage of positives. The final thing to keep in mind is that recruitment buildings operate across an entire province, regardless of which settlement it's built in. That means you should only ever build one of any given recruitment structure in a province, and armies anywhere in the province will be able to recruit those troops. On which topic, let's discuss how to manage armies. Armies in Total War Saga Troy consist of a commanding hero, up to 19 other units, and agents who don't participate in combat but provide support in other ways. Your first hero will always be the legendary hero that you chose during faction selection. These legendary heroes typically have better stats than regular heroes of the same class, and they are immortal, at most being wounded on the battlefield and taken out of commission for a handful of turns before returning. All heroes earn traits based on the actions you take with them, and these traits in turn can change how they are best used. They also gain experience over time through battles, and this experience can be used to unlock skills, buffs, and other modifiers through their skill tree. Different classes of heroes have different skill trees, and apart from abilities and improved stats, the skill trees can also unlock mounts, such as chariots. Finally, heroes are able to acquire equipment as well, and these followers, items, weapons, and armors can be sent around among your heroes to ensure each has what would make them perform best. Each piece of armor or weapon has special buffs they provide, and sometimes they might provide abilities or other opportunities that are best in the hands of a specific hero for a specific task. Though it can take some time to transfer ownership of an item, it's worth inspecting your hero equipment from time to time to ensure they're always carrying the best possible equipment that they can. But no matter how great the equipment or skill of a hero, they aren't meant to take to the field alone. Heroes lead armies. Armies must have a hero in command at all times, and to raise additional armies, you need to select the settlement where you'd like to raise the army, click the Recruit Hero button, and choose a hero to lead the new army based on their class and their traits. Different heroes are motivated by different types of actions, and you'll want to take this into consideration, as a motivated hero performs better than an unmotivated one. Once you've selected and recruited your hero, you're able to recruit troops directly into the army based on which buildings are present in the settlements you own in that province. There are some unique cases though, like Menelaus being able to recruit allied factions units, or Odysseus being able to recruit in enemy territory where his spies have built safe havens, or special units that have been made available through missions or the worship of the gods. But every faction will have this one basic recruitment method. Stand in territory you own, and you can recruit units from your settlements in that province. Again, it doesn't matter which settlement the building is in, as long as the building is somewhere in the province and the army is anywhere you own in the same province. The option to recruit units from that building will be present. This can be especially helpful in frontline provinces, where you might find yourself needing to retreat an army in order to recruit from a building deeper in the province. Since again, the army can recruit from anywhere in the province, they literally just have to step over the province border to gain access to the units you need. It's a good idea to go in with a relatively balanced composition. Just having a bunch of archers without any infantry is a bad idea, just as going in without any range support whatsoever isn't particularly optimal either. Find what makes you comfortable and hone your composition. It depends largely on what you're comfortable with, though as you might imagine, it's a good idea to pay attention to unit stats. Clicking the little pin icon next to a unit card allows you to hover over the unit card, investigate their capabilities in greater detail, and get an idea of how best to use a certain unit versus another. Keep an eye on the cost of the unit and its upkeep cost as well, and note that you can only recruit a certain number of units at a time, with some units taking longer than others to recruit, especially at higher tiers. When units get hurt in battle, they can either be merged with other units of the same type to avoid having weakened units on the battlefield, or they can be disbanded to replace them with fresh recruits at the cost of losing any accumulated experience, or they can be replenished. Units don't typically replenish in enemy territory unless you're in the in-camp stance or equivalent, and they typically replenish faster in friendly territory, and even faster when stationed in a settlement you own. There are a few stances available to your army as well, each with their own pros and cons. Some factions will have unique options at times, so make sure to familiarize yourself with any particular benefits that are worth noting and the cost at which they come. Typically, movement distance or the ability to attack or not attack, or weaken defenses or reduced fatigue. There's a cost to everything, make sure you note it down. And with the right hero in charge of a well-composed army taking advantage of supporting agents while using appropriate stances to navigate the right circumstances, you'll find yourself properly set up to win your battles and ultimately your wars. But while you can certainly auto-resolve battles and avoid fighting them from time to time, there will often be engagements that you have to take direct control over to ensure your success. And to ensure that success, we continue with our next video.